Hi Girls Inc. family. I am Saressa Newsome, sewing and fashion and crafting manager here at Girls Inc. of Western Connecticut. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a fun activity planned for you. Hint, hint. We are going to sew a pin cushion. These can be sewn by hand and they look so adorable. They're made with just a few materials that you might have already sitting around your home. Stay tuned and let's get sewing. For this project, you will need about 12-inch square of fabric. I chose this nice plaid pink and purple. You will need a piece of felt. This will go on the back of your pin cushion and you only need a small portion, about 1 inch or 2-inch squares. You will need a small button, no smaller than 1 inch. 2-hole or 4-hole buttons work perfectly. You will need fiber fill. This is to fill your pin cushion and make sure you have more than enough because you want a nice full pin cushion. You'll need a pencil for marking your fabric. You'll need embroidery floss or thread. I chose this beautiful blue color to contrast against my yellow button. You will also need a ruler and a pair of scissors. I sometimes use a pink and shears so that the edges of my fabric do not fray. If you don't have pink and shears, don't worry about it. Scissors will work just fine. We're going to begin by marking off a 7 to 9 inch circle on our fabric. I'm going to do 9 inches. So to make a circle, you just mark a center point. And ideally you should work on the wrong side of your fabric when you're marking it. So this is going to be my center point of the 9-inch circle. So I would put, or if you have a bowl in your home, that'll be easier to trace around. You can use that as well. But using the tools of the trade, this is how I would create my circle on my fabric. So we know if I'm going to do a 9-inch circle, half of 9 is 4.5. So one side will be 4.5 and the other side will be 4.5. So all the way around 4.5 would create a 9-inch diameter for my circle. I'm sorry, as a designer, I use math so much, so don't mean to be getting too mathematical here, but it's one of my favorite subjects actually. So I am going to mark 4.5 inches all the way around so that I will get a full 9-inch diameter circle for my pin cushion. So go ahead, mark your circle. If you're going to do a 7-inch circle, you're going to create a smaller pin cushion, and that's fine. If you're going to do a 7-inch circle, we know that half of 7 is 3.5. So you would do the same, but using 3.5. So, or you can do a 10-inch circle. It's totally up to you. So go ahead and mark your circle and pause the video. And when you're done, come back for the next step. Now we're going to take our scissors, our pinking shears, and just cut that circle out. This happens to be in the middle of the fabric, but of course, we try to conserve and not waste. So if you can create your circle as close to an edge or somehow where you're not wasting as much fabric, that would be ideal. This is already a piece of scrap fabric, so it's not a fresh piece of fresh cut fabric. It's a scrap, so I didn't think about that. Cut out our circle. Again, I'm using my pinking shears, You can use scissors and that will work just fine. Be careful, of course, while you're cutting. You don't want to cut yourself by mistake, so watch your fingers. So here I have my full 9-inch circle cut out. Our next step is to sew around the perimeter of the circle with the running stitch. So I've went ahead and threaded my needle with one piece of the embroidery floss, and I tied a knot at the other end. So we're going to do a really quick running stitch because we're just going to gather it. I'm going about a 1/4 inch in from the edge. Really quickly, it doesn't have to be anything too neat because you are just going to gather it in to form your rounded pin cushion. You can see the thread doesn't have to be too long because you are just going to end up gathering it at the end anyway. Just so you can see. I'm just sewing all the way around until I get back to this point. I'm going to continue to sew in and out, in and out. This is called the running stitch. So I've already reached the other end. Be careful with the needle. What I'm going to do, so you already see there's sort of like a cup shape you formed from gathering this thread that you sewed around. So you're just gonna pull it in, make sure it's kind of evenly pulled in. Pull. So you start to see the pin cushion forming the shape. Okay? Now at this point, you are going to start to fill your pin cushion with the fiber fill. Okay, so taking a little bit at a time, we're going to fill our pin cushion. We don't want to break the stitches. It's not as easy to break, but if you are too rough, you could break it and then you'll have to stitch around again. So just be a little gentle. See, this seems pretty full, but you want it to be as full as possible because when you close it, you want to have a good foundation for your pins and your sewing needles. So you want to stuff it as much as possible. probably overstuff it more than you think it will need. Okay, and you'll have to pull your thread in as you stuff so it doesn't loosen, but you don't want to tie it just yet because you want to make sure that you have all the fiber fill that you will need inside before you close it off. This is a lot. I think this is a good amount. You could probably even use a little bit more, but that's good for now. So you're going to close off your pin cushion by pulling your thread tightly, and you are going to sew through and tie knots to secure your thread and to secure the closure of your pin cushion so that it doesn't open up. So I'm just sewing through and looping my needle through the thread so that I can tie some knots as I go along. You know, there's really no right or wrong way per se to do this because you are going to end up covering this part up anyway. So you just want to secure it so it doesn't open up. Okay. So you have a pretty firm pin cushion at this point. I think I could have even filled it a little bit more, but I think that's good. So next you will cut off your thread after you've done tying it. You cut it off, and then you will take 2 strands of embroidery floss. If you have a bigger needle that will fit more thread or yarn, that would be good. But next we are going to sew around so that we create the tomato effect. Some people call it the pumpkin effect. I call it the tomato effect because the traditional pin cushion is a tomato. Okay, so you're going to take your 2 strands of thread or floss and thread it through your needle, and then you're going to double it so that you have a nice sturdy ply of thread, and then you're going to tie your end. You will need a good length because you'll go in and out a few times around to create your tomato effect. So make sure it's a good length, but if you do it too long, it could get tangled. So it's always okay to go back in and cut more thread if you need. So this is going to be the bottom of the pin cushion, and this is the top. This is where the button is going to eventually be sewn onto. So we are going to start at any point. I'm going to go in here. To use a longer sewing needle would be best because you're actually going to have to sew through and around a few times, so it has to go through the other side. It'll have to be long enough to go through the other side easily. Ooh. Okay, so you're just gonna push it through. There you go. And if you want to sew a knot so that it doesn't come through for whatever reason, if the knot that you already made, maybe not secure enough, you can sew another knot in there. I don't think you can ever have too many knots in a sewing project. You always want to secure your project. You don't want to undo the beautiful work that you've done and then have to go back and do it all over again. Sometimes it's great to do it over because you learn from it, but I try to avoid it. So we're just gonna go and go around to the other side, go right back through. Be very careful, please. You're gonna pull it up. So you don't have to pull it too tight, but just tight enough to create that tomato effect here. All right, so now I'm going to do this side here. So you're gonna go around a few times until you reach all around your pin cushion. Watch your fingers, please. Okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect because you're gonna cover up this. There's gonna be a button there. So it doesn't have to be too perfect. It could be as perfect as you want it to be. And so now I'm gonna go this way. And already I am running out of thread, so I'll probably have to tie a knot and then add some more thread and then come back to it. Let's see. Okay, this is a tricky part because you can't really see where you're doing from the inside, but trust yourself and just be safe. All right, so right here I've already run out of thread. So what I'm gonna do is bring it here, tie some knots, cut my thread off my needle, and thread some more embroidery floss and start again. One more to make, and then we'll be done with the tomato effect. Okay, so once you're done with your tomato effect sewing, let's see how many sections we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you'll have 8 separate sections going across and around your pin cushion. So I ended up on this side, which is perfect because I am going to sew on the button next. So the button is going to go on this side, which was the smooth side. The opposite side of the closure will work on this side next. If you didn't end up on this side for whatever reason, you can always just push your needle through and push your needle through the side and work on that side, or tie a knot and cut your thread and just start here. So to sew the needle, you're just gonna place it right there. See, so it covers up any kind of mistakes you might have made in the middle, any type of knots, it covers it. I think a bigger button would have been better, but this works. Okay, so we're just gonna thread the needle through the hole, and you're gonna sew through the button just a few times, enough, as many times as you need to secure. So you're gonna, so hopefully you can see, you're gonna just sew through the actual pin cushion, through the fabric, bring your needle up on another section, and thread your needle back through the button. So it's very hard to see because everything is so close, but you're just sewing in and out just to secure that button onto. And see, it's already pretty secure, but we're going to do it a couple more times just to make sure that it's not going to come off. You put it up through the hole and around one more time. You do it as many times as you want. I think, 3 or 4 times would be good enough. If you've sewn buttons before, this should be fairly easy for you to do. Even if you've never sewn before, this is pretty easy, but it'll take a little bit to get used to. So I think this button is pretty secure. So what I'm going to do is tie some knots here in the back of the button. You're going to thread your needle through the fabric, pull it out, put your needle through the loop, pull it to tie a knot. Do that a couple times. And then I'm just going to do it around the thread and tie my knot. So that's secure. So now I know I am going to sew my felt onto the other side of the pin cushion. So I'm just gonna pull my needle through so it goes into the other side. And I can just sew the felt to this end without having to thread needles and tie knots again. There it is. This should be enough thread to tie around. So there is the other side. We're going to take a felt and just gauge to see about how much you'll need. So I'm going to cut small circle. Sorry, I'm going to cut a small circle out. It doesn't have to be perfect. I didn't draw anything, I didn't trace anything, I just cut it out freehand. Okay, that's pretty good. And then we are going to do a whip stitch around to secure it onto the bottom of the pin cushion. So the whip stitch goes around the edge. You're going to thread through the fleece, the felt, sorry, and you're going to pick up a piece of the pin cushion, and you're going to go at an angle, insert your needle into the felt again. You see that stitch is at an angle, and you're going to continue to do that all the way around your circle until you finish sewing, until you reach where you began, and then you'll be done with your pin cushion. So take your time and sew all the way around, and I cannot wait to see your project. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoy creating these functional projects. As a sewer, a crafter, a pin cushion comes in handy, and generally I have a few of them in different areas, because while you're working, you always want to have your tools nearby, and sometimes you have different workstations. Alright, so continue to work. This is coming along very nicely. Continue to work around your project. See? Beautiful. Work all the way around, and then we'll show our finished projects. So here's the finished product. Isn't it adorable? You can take your pins and stick it in. Thank you for watching our pin cushion tutorial. We hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment below about what you enjoyed most. If you learned anything new, please let us know. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll get alerts on our new videos. Follow us on Facebook at Girls Inc. of Western Connecticut, and on Instagram at Girls Inc. WCT. And of course, we'd love to see your photos, so you can also tag us, and you can email us at info@girlsincswct.org. Thank you so much. Be well. We'll see you soon.